Hello, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. Welcome back for Hausfrau Friday. I'm actually filming this segment on Sunday afternoon because I anticipate that by Friday I will be down for the count with coronavirus. 4 of the 6 members of our household are currently quite ill, and this new subvariant is so flippin' contagious that despite masking in the house, this morning I have a sore throat and I don't feel that awesome. So we'll see how it goes. In the back of my mind, I am kind of hoping it's just really bad allergies, but we'll see. Occam's razor says that I've probably got COVID. So I'm filming this segment today so that I can have it ready to just click publish and share with you all on Friday. Now, in the future, I would like to make a video where I talk about the 7 executive functioning skills that are really a valuable set of tools in the toolbox for every homemaker. Some of us are blessed with really high natural executive functioning, and some of us, those are learned skills that we have to work at. And some of us need some workarounds and some assistance and some accommodations to help build our executive functioning and maybe compensate for ways in which we don't naturally have high executive functioning. I would love to get to that video. Today is not that day, but I will say today I want to talk about the ways that we can prepare for the inevitable episodes of illness or injury that we have in our households, and how it's really important that we as homemakers tap into that executive functioning and plan ahead. We need to employ that advanced planning and use those checklists and help us prepare and set our households up for success when we face periods of injury or illness. Whether folks in our household are going to be sick, or whether we as the homemaker and the master or mistress of the household, the person who keeps the gears going, keeps the household running, is down, we need to make sure that everything doesn't grind to a halt, or that if it does grind to a halt, that the basic functions and basic needs of the household and garden are met. So I'm framing the work that I'm doing ahead of time as a gift that I am giving my future self. And should I be down for a period of time with illness or injury, it's a gift I'm giving other members of the household so that they can compensate for my absence. That's a lot of what executive functioning is. Planning ahead, having checklists, having a good view down the road for what may be coming your way, and preparing. So what I do, number 1, is I have a good first aid kit ready. That includes wound care supplies. My dad was a wound care physician, and so caring for injuries, anything from like a box of Band-Aids all the way up to pretty significant injuries for both myself and my pets, is something that I always have on hand. Well-stocked first aid supplies. For illness, I make sure that I have a pulse oximeter. I make sure that I have fever reducers and anti-inflammatories on hand, Tylenol and ibuprofen. I'm not anti-Western medicine. Permaculture is not anti-science and is not anti-medicine. There can be lots of ways that we want to seek out or want to feel more connected to natural remedies, but that doesn't mean that we're anti-Western medicine, at least not in my household. I also want to make sure that I have thermometers with good batteries in them. I want to make sure that I am stocked up on those kinds of things that I need to diagnose and treat basic things that may creep up in my household. I don't want to find that once my children start running a fever, I am out a fever reducer. I don't want to find that when my kid cuts their hand, that we are somehow out of all first aid supplies. I want to make sure I have those things in abundance, and I want to frequently check that expiration dates are not approaching. A lot of medications are good way past their expiration date. They're just maybe reduced efficacy, and so you may find that you don't get as significant of a benefit from a fever reducer if it's expired. So I'm not advocating that you use expired medicines. I am advocating that the internet is a great resource for the shelf life of a lot of medicines. And should you get into a crisis and you find that you only have expired medicine in your medicine cabinet, you can use the power of the internet to see what the implications are of using that medicine past its expiration date. So I keep a good stock of medicines and a good stock of medical supplies. Number 1. And I make sure that I don't run so low on those that should we hit a crisis, we are in big trouble. Number 2 is I have the freezer stocked with easy meals. That is because when you live in a household like mine, where in order to reduce our food budget and to follow our eating ethics and to maximize the utilization of stuff coming out of our garden and from a local food economy, there is a lot of labor involved in a lot of the food that I cook. I don't have a lot of quick, easy meals. I don't have a lot of convenience food. Because the truth is, a lot of economical and nutritious, nourishing meals take time to cook. So I do keep a stash of things that are convenience foods so that if I am too sick or if I am injured and I can't make those whole, nourishing meals for my family, we have some stopgaps. Whether it is things like the fact that I have several containers of homemade beef stock in the basement, oftentimes if I'm sick, the best thing is just a mug of hot beef broth. That is such a comforting, nourishing food when I may not feel like eating other things. Or whether it is things like some frozen pizzas. We do make homemade pizza that I can freeze ahead of time and then just kind of par cook it and pop it in the oven and finish it off. But sometimes I just buy frozen pizza at the store and have them in there so that my kids can make them. I have easy things that my kids can make in the toaster oven if I am too sick to cook. I make sure that I have a stock of fruit and yogurt pretty much all the time in the refrigerator so that my kids can access that kind of thing on their own. Being prepared in that way means that we get to a position where we're all sick, but we still need to feed ourselves. We are not looking at laborious time spent in the kitchen when we would rather be resting. And I think that that is something that maybe folks who are really big into cook from scratch, really big into eating local, sometimes can be less than prepared for. It is not a crime. It is not a failing to have convenience food in your freezer. So along with that convenience food, I do keep some good old-fashioned sick food in the house. Boxes of saltines, ginger ale, and some easy things like ramen noodles, something that is going to be salty, carby, and easy to eat, and something that appeals to somebody who might not have the stomach for regular food. Again, don't think that's a crime. Don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't want to fall into purity fallacies in my permaculture or in my homemaking. I'm doing the best I can in a really difficult system. Or perhaps if we lived in a different kind of community, in a different culture, in a different system, if we were ill, everyone would come bring us food and take care of us, and we would return the favor when other folks in our community are ill. But often in American culture, you are on your own. So we need to be prepared. Speaking of which, I have the great benefit of not actually being on my own. I have wonderful neighbors who have checked in on me, multiple neighbors who've checked in on us over the last few days, offered to go to the grocery store and pick up food if we need it. My next door neighbor, Ben, is taking care of our baby turkeys and ducklings and chicks right now, which is just such a wonderful gift for me to have one less thing on my plate right now while I'm taking care of so many other sick folks. And I am trying to shoulder the burden of all of the household and work obligations by myself. Having a neighbor who says, I'm going to help you out when you are struggling is so important. You take the time to invest in your neighbors and build community connections, you will see a dividend from that. You will see that your friends are there to help you when you struggle. One of my good friends brought us COVID tests because we didn't have any. We had 2 left, I think. And she drove some over without me even asking. She just said, nope, I'm bringing this over to you. I don't care. Don't argue with me. You would do the same for me. And I think that's so true. When we invest in other people, there are unexpected benefits. That's not the purpose of investing in relationships. It's just the reality that when we build community, we can all support each other when we're struggling. We can help lift each other up. We can help take over some of those burdens. I know that if my neighbors had COVID and they needed my help, I would go to the grocery store for them. I would put food on their front steps. I would help lock up their ducks and chickens. I would help in any of the ways that they needed. And it is such a wonderful feeling to know that I have a community that would do the same for me and is doing the same for me. So even though we live in a highly individualistic society, I have a video on that subject. Not sure which side it will appear on here. I have a video on that subject. It doesn't mean that we can't foster community. It doesn't mean that we can't build relationships. It doesn't mean that we are necessarily screwed in American culture when it comes to community. We can find those pockets of connection and pockets of support where we are supporting someone else, and they in turn are supporting us when we need it. Think about that in your long range goals, when sometimes it can feel difficult to do community, when having relationships with other people can feel sometimes really hard. Know that there's so many benefits, and this is one of them. This is one of those times where I'm just really, really grateful for the friends and neighbors in my life. So this may sound like a strange one, but for me, I make sure that when I'm going to be sick and I'm going to be down with some kind of illness, that I have crafts ready. My spouse would definitely say he would have books ready to read. For me, I struggle with overproductivity a lot. And that means it is, I don't want to say worse for me than for other people when I'm sick, but I have the double whammy of feeling awful, being low energy, and then having the anxiety of all of the things I am not getting done. I do not do well sitting still. Folks who have known me and been my friends and been around me at the 2 periods in my life when I have broken my leg and not been able to engage in all of the physical activities I wanted to engage in will know that I am kind of insufferable when I am not fully functional. So to make myself less difficult to be around, to make myself more of a cooperative patient and less frustrating for other folks in my household, and to help myself, to give myself the gift of endurance and ability to weather an injury or illness better, I make sure that I have some easy craft supplies at the ready. I'm not talking like complicated lace knitting with chart work. I'm not talking my spinning wheel. I'm not talking going upstairs to my loom. I'm talking some really easy mending. And so I keep my sewing kit by the bed, and I keep a basket of mending by the bed. Some really easy, straightforward knitting that if I fall asleep in the middle of it, I can pick it back up and know where I am in the pattern. Those kinds of things help me mentally deal with injury or illness, to help me feel that I'm productive, that I'm contributing in some small way, that I am not wasting my time. I know it feels really silly for folks who don't struggle with overproductivity to see illness as something other than I am resting and recuperating and I am doing the work of healing and getting through and returning to full health. But for folks who struggle with overproductivity, feeling like you are laying in bed, it can feel like I'm doing nothing, and this huge list of things that is constantly running in the back of my highly executive functioning mind is not getting done. And that is really stressful and anxiety inducing. So for me, it is a great step in self-care for me to know that about myself and to know to prepare ahead of time, that I always have easy craft projects at the ready. And I always have a list of audiobooks from the library that I can plug into and podcasts I can plug into if I'm sick, so that even if I'm so sick I can't do craft projects, I can be expanding my mind and learning something. I am not saying if you are sick and all you do is rest and veg out that you are doing the wrong thing. You are doing the right thing. You know how to be sick or injured better than I do. But I'm saying I know my own self and I know my own issues and I know how to support myself best. And for me, that has been really important. So know yourself, be introspective enough to know what you need to get through periods of injury or illness and prepare ahead of time for them. So stock your first aid kit for injury and for illness, stock your pantry, stock your coping mechanisms, stock your ability to self-care. The last thing that I do is that I prepare for my garden and my livestock as best that I can. I try not to let food supplies get low for my pets as well. If I know there is a period where I feel like I'm coming down with something, or I know other folks in my household are sick, I make sure that I take all my baby plants, all my potted plants, and I move them into the shade, and I give them a good drink so that if in the future, be it even the next morning, I'm too sick to handle those things, I know that I've kind of buffered my plants a little bit. Same thing if it's hot, dry weather and I feel like I might be starting to come down with something, I give my garden a good water. When normally I don't water my garden very much at all. I make sure that I fill extra buckets of water for my ducks and chickens. Ducks need to immerse their full face into a bucket of water, so I use open buckets for my poultry and I change them once a day. If I think I'm going to be sick, I fill several extra buckets and I put them down right at the edge of the chicken run so that if I have to stumble down there in the morning feeling like absolute garbage, Past Me has extended the gift of filling the water buckets. I cannot tell you how much that matters in the morning when you are feeling crummy, that you don't have to go fill the water buckets and haul them down to the poultry. Past Me has gifted them and they're right there, and that eases my burden when I'm already struggling. By the same token, I want to make sure that I have ample stocks of food, and so I might adapt my poultry feeding routine if I'm sick, and I might prepare for that by knowing that I might not have as many food scraps to feed them for breakfast because I'm feeling unwell and because we're eating more convenience foods and I'm not having like as many veggie scraps or things like that. I keep a good stock of commercial feed at all times in case my birds need it. So my kids and I were talking yesterday actually about what farmers must do who have large amounts of livestock that need like daily milking and daily care, or when you have an agricultural system that relies on also intensive daily management. This is where permaculture design, I think, can be really beneficial so that your system can face some measure of neglect. My ducks and chickens can free range quite a bit of their food. If I were to face some catastrophe and I couldn't get out to feed them for 24 hours, they still have food that they can access. I think when we build resilience into our system, we have to plan for how does our system handle periods where we are not intensively managing it. I think that's really important. In terms of our household, doing those things I mentioned earlier can help buffer and bolster us. When we're looking at our permaculture design for our system, we need to think about our home and our garden and how we can build in security and we can build in protection for those times that we are ill or injured. How we can also gift our future selves, using our executive functioning skills, using that advanced planning so that we are easing the burden of our future self when we face those inevitable periods of hardship. Thanks for watching today. I hope that I am not going to be terribly ill by the time you're watching this. If I am, know that I will be working on finishing this skirt I'm making for my daughter, which has quite a bit of hand sewing to do on the inside, and I figured it would be really easy. I have to finish this raw seam by hand. This is a crawdad print I got at the thrift store, and I thought, oh gosh, Ruth would really love this. There's just enough for a skirt. So this is my easy sewing project I have set by my bed right now for when I don't feel well enough to do anything else except drink a cup of hot tea and sew by hand. Fingers crossed I don't get there. I hope you all stay well and healthy, and I will be back for my permaculture garden tomorrow because I have filmed something in advance just in case.